Yes, good morning. It's 11 o'clock on the 24th of February 2022. My name is Russell Jackman. I'm a father of 8 children to 2 different marriages, and I'll be 68 years old tomorrow. So that's a brief introduction as to who I am. Yeah.
Can you tell me your earliest memory?
My earliest memories probably would be around the age of maybe 10 years old, and probably the most significant memory. I have vague memories before then, but they're very vague. When we grew up in Hobart for a couple of years, Sydney, Hobart, but they're very, very fleeting thoughts. But an actual significant memory would probably be around the age of 10 when my mother passed away. I remember those events more clear than anything else.
What was life like growing up when and where you did?
Well, we shifted life growing up. We started off in Tassie. My father was an oil company representative for Shell, and we left Tasmania to go and live with near his sisters, who lived in Sydney. Dad got transferred to Sydney, and we lived in a place called Eaglemont in Sydney. We stayed there for a few years, and then Dad got transferred back to Melbourne. And we've been here, fortunately or unfortunately, ever since. It's had its ups and downs, Melbourne. It can be good and bad, but that's pretty much our movements as far as the family went. 40 years, 50 years, actually longer than that, probably 55 years in Melbourne. So, yeah.
What was the happiest memory from your childhood?
The happiest memory. Oh, I think possibly the happier memories, and it's a little bit of an oxymoron this, because after my mother died, my mother was from the country. She lived in a place called Princetown, which is in the Western District of Melbourne, and her family owned a farm which was right alongside the 12 Apostles, which is the ocean down there. And I had the bittersweet memories of going down there. Dad used to take us down there on a regular occasions, probably once a month. We'd go down there and we'd enjoy all the things that farm life had to offer: riding horses, milking cows, mustering cattle, fishing. It was right on a river, right on the ocean. Dad used to take us fishing in the early hours of the morning, when the sea mist was rolling in, and the air was fresh and crisp, and the waves were pounding, and they were beautiful experiences for me as a child. When I say child, I was probably 12 years old, I guess. Coupled with the weird sensations of sleeping in a bed at night on a country farm, listening to the wind rustling through the trees and the waves breaking on the ocean, and a strange melancholy feeling knowing that I'd lost my mum and she was never coming back. It was kind of therapeutic in a way, because it enabled me to get those thoughts out about those experiences. So that was a positive. Tinged with the sadness of course, losing the person, one of your main people in your life. There's some of the sweet memories probably the best memories that I had growing up.
What are you glad your parents taught you at a young age?
Well, of course, Mum, I don't remember a lot of my mother, apart from poking her false teeth out at me occasionally, and she was a bit of a prankster from memory for my mother. But I don't have many, unfortunately, I don't have many fond memories of my mum. Only one memory just flashed into my head then, sitting on the couch, looking up and flashing her teeth, sticking her false teeth out, a couple of false teeth. She used to like pranking, I think. Dad, he was a more serious sort of a character. Dad was a captain in the army. He was like actually very much similar to Matthew. Always a clever guy, always going to be a success in life, and which he was. At a young age, he was playing cricket for Tasmania at the age of 17. But then the war struck, and then Dad went on. He was a captain in the army at the age of, I think, 21 or 22, up in Darwin when the Japs invaded Australia. He was telling us the stories of how the bombs were going off and rattling their cages up there. It was quite an emotional experience, and I just read recently in the paper, actually, Jeff Kennett wrote a really good article on Darwin and the bombing of Darwin, and it brought it back very vividly to me what they must have gone through, just sitting in the middle of a battle with Japanese bombers coming over, bombing the crap out of Darwin, and it really put me in the picture, and I thought, oh wow, I could actually feel the emotion that Dad was talking about. Yeah.
Did your dad teach you anything important that you're happy that he taught you?
Yeah, sorry, I did divert off that topic because I got a bit emotional just thinking about it. Well, what Dad taught us, God love him, God bless your soul, Dad. Dad was, being from an army background and the oil company that he worked for, he was extremely disciplined person. So the first word that would come to mind was Dad had a structure and a regime every day. After Mum died, I think Dad, although he was an emotional wreck at the time, because I remember in the room next door him crying every night, losing Mum, and that haunted me for a long time. You know, just listening to Dad crying at night was upsetting. But I thought, to his credit, with all that, with that great loss that he had, he still disciplined himself to get up in the morning at 6 o'clock, go about daily life, getting himself prepared for work, which he still had to work, and looking after the two boys, myself and my brother, taking us to schools and doing all those sort of things and getting us organised. He had that discipline, and he was very committed, very loyal man. He had great qualities. I believe he was very honest. I never heard one word against Dad. He was just a straight shooter, and doing his best to raise two young boys.
What was his name?
Daryl.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
To my younger self? At what age would you think is young?
12.
At 12? I think try not to shut yourself off from people and isolate yourself. But at the time we're talking about a significant event that took place. So if we put that, if we compartmentalise that event, my advice would be try and get help, because back then there was no help. There was no help for people really. I mean, when my mum died, people came for about 2 weeks and we never saw them again. And I felt for Dad, not so much for myself. My advice, I should have been more supportive of my father, I thought. I was a bit of a rebel as a boy, but I was anchorless. I'd lost my mum, and it's very hard to find yourself, get your identity back as a human being. You tend to lose a lot within yourself, and I think I did. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't really achieve at the time the things that I thought I could achieve. My life was just too emotional at the time, and if I had my time back again in that particular circumstance, I probably, a bit more maturity-wise, I would have given Dad more support, because he was going through hell, and I didn't realise that till later. all the crying at night and the misery that he was going through. And he held it together in front of us, but behind closed doors, it was a different story. So, yeah.
What were you like at school? Can you tell me a bit about your experience?
Yes, well, again, significant. Primary school was fine. I didn't have too many dramas. I went to the local primary school at Cheltenham where we lived most of our, up until our adult lives. School was okay, primary school. Come secondary school, my brother and I were a bit annoyed with Dad for living so far away from a high school that we wanted to go to, because the headmaster of this particular school happened to be with Dad in the army. So Dad decided that was the place to send us. It was a 5-kilometre ride on our bikes from one suburb to another. That part of school I didn't like. Back then the school was a lot different. I don't think I was very emotionally stable at the time, to be honest with you. I think I was still going through the loss and abandonment, the significance of what had happened to my mum, the misery my dad was going through. And myself and my brother, we went to school, but I wouldn't say we really enjoyed it. I wasn't an overly academic kid, or I didn't pursue those sort of things. We were brought up on a diet of sport as children, because Dad was a sportsman. So he pushed the sporting side. So I guess my enjoyment at school was probably cricket, footy, and hanging out with my mates. But I was a bit of a rebel. I was very emotionally disturbed, though. I don't think I wasn't stable at all at school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't really have a lot of direction. Dad was a person that, although he was disciplined and loyal, the loving side he showed in different ways. He wasn't a hugger. He wasn't a "I love you, kids." He wasn't like that. He would show it in different ways. So I guess I missed that nurturing side, and that's probably what made me what I was when I was a teenager. I was a little bit left of centre. I didn't have real direction, no real anchor or purpose at the time, and still going through a range of emotions around losing Mum. Yeah, that's the long answer.
Do you have any embarrassing stories from your childhood?
Eddie, what's that?
Embarrassing stories.
Embarrassing stories? Oh, there's hundreds of them. Gosh. Oh, embarrassing as in being caught in an embarrassing situation. I've been caught with a girl in the lounge room, and Dad's walked in. That was pretty embarrassing. And to make matters worse, the second girl walked in about 10 minutes later, and she was equally embarrassed. Now that was about as bad as it gets. I was probably about, I was 16 years old at the time. But yeah, that's what it was like back then. People would drop in and out of houses. But yeah, Dad was always funny like that, having people over. It was always embarrassing to have Dad around. I remember one embarrassing story which turned into a bit of a disaster was my elder brother, Michael. I know it's not about me, but I was there. Michael only ever had one girlfriend. He's my older brother by 4 years, and he only ever had one girlfriend. And this particular night, the girl happened to ring, and Michael answered the phone. And he was chatting away to this girl, and Dad came by, and he was hanging around the phone. And my brother got really embarrassed about that. He said, "Dad, get away, get away." And I can't remember what Dad said to him. He said something, and my brother went like this, bang. He was on the phone, he didn't look, he went like that, and he accidentally hit Dad in the jaw. And Dad went flying on the floor. As embarrassing as that was, Dad never approached my brother again when he was on the phone. And I found that pretty funny, although poor old Michael, my brother, I think he lives to regret that day. But that was another funny one. We had a lot of parties at my place. Again, we had to have them when Dad wasn't home, because Dad was a bit funny about people coming to the house. And Yeah, we used to have parties back in those days in the 70s, and they were like a hippie party. And we would all dress up. And I remember the clothes I wore, and I thought, my God, how could I wear something like that? I looked like something out of a stage production of, I don't know, Romeo and Juliet, you know. I had these red flannelly, these red silky puffy shirts and black tight vests, and I look back now and think, oh my God, I must have looked absolutely stupid. But that was embarrassing when I think back at those in those days. Yeah, look, there's probably a lot more, but they're three that immediately came to mind.
So you have touched on your mother already,
Mm.
but can you give me a description of what she was like and your relationship with her?
Yeah, well, like I said, Daniel, I don't have many memories of Mum. I'll be honest. Only I look at photos and I still don't remember Mum. You know, I look at the photo, I know what Mum looked like. I remember pictures of her on the farm, on the beach, when we went to the beach. But actual conversations, don't remember one. Significant moments, don't remember any, apart from the time when she poked her teeth out, and that's very vague. So I said this to my brother, I don't remember anything hardly at all about Mum, and she died when I was 10 years old. So yeah, I can't really give you anything.
In what ways are you similar to your parents?
Am I similar? I've always thought I've got a bit of ABC in me. I'm a bit of a quirky person, I think, myself. I've always trying to understand myself at times. My personality can shift quite a lot. I can go into ABC mode. I do cryptic crosswords. I do all sorts of weird stuff. I like ABC TV at times. And then on the flip side of that, I can be the opposite. I can be a real rat bag, hang out with rat bags, music, because I grew up with music as well. I didn't mention that. And a lot of the guys in music were a bit left of centre. So I sort of I didn't quite know where to fit in, because I worked for the public service. Yeah, and I've had a lot of different jobs doing anything and everything.
Can you tell me a little bit about your siblings?
My sibling, my brother. Yeah, sure. Well, growing up, Mike wasn't one to open up a lot, and I think he probably got that from my father, because my dad never opened up a lot. Michael was very loyal to my father, whereas I wasn't. I tend to be more of a roustabout, get out there. My brother was a stay-at-home type. I think it hit him hard when Mum died. He was 4 years older. He was more emotionally mature than me. And he stayed at home. My brother, he lived at home until he was, 42, even after my father passed away. My brother was living at home out of love and loyalty to Dad. And and unfortunately, I sort of saw that it's a plus and a negative, really, because Michael really found it difficult to think for himself. My father was a decision maker. He'd grown up that way. He was a captain. He was representing Shell, a big company, and he knew how to make decisions. So I saw that as a negative for my brother, that Dad made a lot of decisions for him. So he was he found it very difficult to make a decision without asking someone else. Like, he'd even ask me, what do you think about this? Should I do that? And I said, well, Mike, you're 40 years old, That was a negative. But yeah, growing up, Mike was like me. He was a sporty guy. He's a really funny guy. He likes chatting. He loves talking to people. He can be the life of the party in his own little way. He's got his own sense of humour. He's a nice guy, a really nice guy. But yeah, I don't know. I never really spoke to Michael about the significance of what I spoke before about losing Mum, and through life how that affected him. But I think but obviously did because he stayed with Dad all that time. Never had a girlfriend, one girlfriend, and that was it.
Can you tell me a little bit about your grandparents and what you know about them?
Yep, grandparents. My mother's side, they lived on a farm in Princetown. They owned a lot of land down there, and they had dairy cattle, beef cattle, sheep. We went after my mother died. We probably went down there, I'd say, once a month, which were great memories because that was my attachment. That was my family attachment. Having lost Mum, they really became my second family. My cousins, I had 4 cousins living on the farm, 3 boys and a girl, and the grandparents. Now the grandparents, he was an old farm type guy, very rough and ready, very macho sort of a guy. And the grandmother, Christine, she was a very hospitable lady. I remember she had a funny sense of humour. She always used to like to laugh. My grandfather, if you went and put your hand across the dinner table to get something, he would bang you with a spoon. That was his modus operandum. He was a very, I don't know what you'd call him. He was a nice guy. He was just a hard-working farmer. Liked his whiskey. Liked talking about the shipwrecks down on the coast, and I didn't have a lot to do with him. The mother was a very sweet lady, and back in those days, Mum looked after, nurtured the family. Dad went out to work and farming at 7 days a week, so it's hard yards. But they were always friendly towards us and welcoming. We could go down there any time, and they'd always have us stay at their place, which was lovely, really lovely. We needed it. And Dad would go fishing down there. The grandparents on the other side of the family, which is Dad's family, again, very nice people. The grandfather he'd done hard yards. He worked for a gas company in a factory and in Tasmania, which was really hard, demanding work. Grandmother, she would stay home, bake cakes. I always remember her cakes whenever we went to Tassie back to visit. Not a lot of memories apart from that with them. He got dementia as he went on, and she kept baking cakes, and she was very friendly and warm to the family. Very loving lady.
What do you like most about your family?
Which family?
Either.
You mean my mother's family or my own family?
Your own family.
My children? Well, I love my children. They're my reason for living. As you get older, we've done it all, been there. I can't complain. I've tried a lot of things in life, and now I can sit back and hopefully, as most grandparents would wish, as their children just be happy and be enjoying life. That's all we want. We want happiness and enjoyment out of seeing our children successful and being happy in their lives is all I really want. That's how I see my family at the moment, and be there for them, which I have been for the last 10 years on a daily basis. I'm sad to say at times. It doesn't stop. But yeah.
What's the funniest memory you have with your family?
Oh gosh. Well, we've had some funny time. We've got a lot of pranksters in our family. None more than Matthew. Matthew's got a very dry sense of humour, and he cracks people up. My brother, he can crack people up. My other son, Simon, he's a really funny guy. He comes up with some beauties. And combine them all together in one place, like a Christmas Day, for instance, about 5 years ago. We decided to look at the various traits of people in our family. and we took the mickey out of them on Christmas Day. For example, we had one person that was a real tight person with money, fairly new to the family actually. We probably shouldn't have done it, but a few of the examples that day where we thought we'd set a few people up on Christmas Day. When it came time to handing out the presents, we'd bought an op shop gift for the tight lady, and she's opened up and going, what the hell's this? Some old set of spoons, you know, from the op shop. My brother, who's just, how do I describe him? He likes to take the mickey out of people, so we thought, okay. He never dresses appropriately, my brother. Like, I don't know, he's just got no dress sense at all. He doesn't even care, I don't think, what he wears. But we bought him we went to the op shop again, we bought a suit that was too short. The pants came up to halfway up his calves. We had a tie that came down to here. And what else did we give him? We gave him a hat or something, some ridiculous thing, and a light bulb, just ridiculous things that you'd never use. And the funny thing was, he went and tried them all on, like knowing that we said we'd like to see how it looks, and he came out and everyone just broke up laughing, you know, because he looked absolutely ridiculous. He had a suit that didn't fit, a tie that was too short, he's holding a light bulb. And things like that were really funny times in the family. We do get together a lot because there's 8 children and now 10 grandchildren. So we have a lot of funny moments and family gatherings. We're always ribbing each other, all in good fun.
What's the saddest memory you have with your family?
The saddest memory as a family? Well, the boys losing their mum was really sad. Matthew, Ali and Harmony losing their mum, that'd have to rank number 1. And lost family member close is always going to be your saddest moment in life. We're fortunate we haven't got any debilitating injuries in our family. No one's in a wheelchair, no one's blind, no one's deaf. But yeah, just loss of life, I think, was probably the saddest memories. Because we've lost our grandparents, and that's always sad. But losing a parent or losing the closest person to you is, yeah.
How did that affect you?
Oh gosh, affected me for a long time. You have a lot of loss of life is always an emotional roller coaster with people. People will say to you, "There's nothing you could do. We couldn't change anything." I mean, my mother died of cancer at the age of 43, and we didn't find out until she was dead. Dad did not want us to see her in that state when she was shriveled up. And that was an emotional roller coaster at that age of 12. And then Matt's mum, when we lost her, that was a phone call from the police. That was just devastating. And you go through these range of emotions at the time. You know, I wish I had have said this. I wish I had have done that. Could I have changed this? You know, is it something I said? You know, there's a whole lot of questions you ask around guilt, grief and loss. Those 3 big ones. The guilt of perhaps I could have done something more. The grief of, knowing what's happened and losing the great sense of loss that you have when someone's gone. It just leaves you empty.
Which family member do you wish you had a better relationship with?
Well, at present, with the children, probably one of the daughters has had a falling out with the whole family, particularly me, because when I got remarried or when I left, she wasn't born, and she held me accountable to that and said that I wasn't there for her when she was born, which is true, I wasn't. But ever since then, the whole sadly, we still chat, but she's turned against the whole family. So she hasn't been to a family gathering now for I wouldn't like to think, 12 years maybe. She's 34. We can still be civil, but the anger comes out in her from time to time around when she was born and I wasn't there. Yeah, that's probably the worst case scenario. Matthew can be difficult at times too. He's hard to break through sometimes. I have a relationship with Matt, but it's sometimes on a needs basis, or like today, he'll organise something for me, but I don't know if it's for me or if it's for him. You know, I've done my best to help Matt, but at times I sort of feel, I don't know, it's just a hard one to get through. He's a hard one to get through at times.
What piece of family history do you hope is never lost to time?
Yeah, well, going way back, of course, the memories of going to Princetown. I don't want them to be ever lost because it's all about family history. We've got family history in Princetown, and I don't want to lose that for my children, and they've all been down there. We've got family history in Tasmania, where our great-grandfather was an early settler / convict, and he was a brewer, and I don't want to lose that sort of history. Modern history, of course, with the children and the grandchildren, everything's in picture format, so we don't want to lose all the memories there, because your own mind can think of things but can't put them onto paper. So it's nice to have all the pictures and the videos, or what, like we're doing now, for the family to look at and have that memory, like what you're doing. It's great, you know. They'll all have this memory of there's Dad sitting there rambling away. He hasn't changed a bit.
Can you tell me a little bit about your closest friends?
And funnily enough, I was thinking about this yesterday, this question, not in the light of what I'm doing here, but just generally. I thought, gee, the friends I've got now, I've got from school, 0. From working life, 0. Up to the age of 40, I had one constant friend. The first guy I worked in a bank with, we played music with. I still see him occasionally to play music. And the other two are both music as well. But one lives in Point Cook, one lives in Dandenong. And at the end of the day, I see them very occasionally. I'll see them tomorrow, Sunday on my birthday. So I might see these friends once, twice a year, and an occasional phone call. As you get older, I don't know what happens. All through your life, people drift away anyway. You know, your working life, your school life to your work life to your married life. We all know when you get married, they all say, all those single people disappear, and you're trying to make friends, you know, with your neighbours and in your married life. But really, my kids are probably my friends at the moment, in that sense. But yeah, in 68 years of living, there's probably two people really that you'd say would be there for you, as you call a friend. If you needed help, they're there. Bring them up, and vice versa.
What qualities do you value most in a friend?
Well, you'd have to say the most important qualities be honesty. Honesty, trust, respect. And look, I'm not here to judge anyone, because I'll be the worst person to be judging. I don't like judging people. I don't like passing judgments on people, because I know myself. I'd feel very hypocritical, because we all make a lot of mistakes and we're all too quick to judge at times. But having said that, you would like a friend that's honest and tells you what it is. And I've got a couple of those. They'll talk openly about things. Although you find with friends, if it comes to relationship issues, they tend to sit on the fence. They don't want to upset one, and they don't want to upset the other. But generally speaking, honesty and respect. If you help it's a bit like what happened yesterday. I was a bit disappointed with this boy. I lent him the car and he hadn't rung me. He hasn't rung to say, I couldn't have cared less if he said, I need it today, take it, I'll catch the train. But to me, that was a sign, that's disrespectful. You got to let people know, and I'll be telling him that what you did is disrespectful. Okay? So, yeah, they're the two main qualities.
Which friend do you wish you never lost contact with, and why, and what happened?
Well, one comes to mind, or two that came to mind, both really lovely guys. God, it's that long ago, I can't remember his name. Chris and Andrew. Chris was a guy I met, lived in Mentone, really lovely, genuine guy. Just a nice guy to be around. I can't say any more than that about him. Just a really nice guy to be around. Thoughtful, listen, wasn't the sort of guy that pushed himself on people, and he was always there for you. But I'm talking about 35 years ago. The other one, Andrew, another guy that I really had a lot of respect for and love for. He was just he'd look you straight in the eye. He'd tell you exactly what he thought, but in a nice way. He wasn't a demeaning sort of person or condescending person. He meant what he said. And he'd say it in a way, not to be offensive, but to be, constructive. And I really missed him. He moved up to Mount Evelyn, and I never, because of his surname, there's so many of them, I gave up looking. But he was married, and sadly, they move away. People move away. What can you say?
What memories with your friends always makes you think back to happier times?
Oh, what memories with friends? Oh gosh, well, there's sporting memories, like you mentioned, cricket. Dad was a mad cricketer and liked his footy, and one of our neighbours was into cricket, and we had a lot of fun, on and off the field, playing cricket together and socialising together. They were great memories I had with a friend. The other one I mentioned, Chris, before, had a lot of good times with him, just hanging out, going to places and having a laugh. And Andrew, the other one that moved to Mount Evelyn, on a more sort of serious basis, but I just loved listening to him talking, and, he just spoke of the deeper issues of life, spirituality, what are we here for? I got a lot out of those conversations and where we're going as human beings and what we want to be as human beings in our lives. What do we stand for here? We stand to make money? No. We stand to be good people, yes. And that was a legacy that he left me with. He was such a good guy. It was like talking to Jesus for me. I just listened to every word he said, this guy. So they were, in a different way, they were really good educational life memories, where I took a lot more out of that than just hanging out with mates, drinking and having fun. They were sort of instilling into me life's values, which at that time I really needed, because I was just coming off a rocky road from, what was going on in my teenage years, which weren't very pleasant. So that was good.
What's the funniest thing you've witnessed a friend do?
Okay. Let me think. Gosh. because I haven't got many friends, I have to think back. I have to switch the clock back. You know what I mean? I had one, probably the most recent funny thing a friend did was the one that lives in Point Cook, Salvatore. I used to play in a band with him, and my friend, she was a bit of a rabble rouser, and she used to get people up to dance when the band played. And this particular night, there weren't too many people at the venue, and we got there and we said, well, we can't get up and play anything yet, there's no one here. So my friend decided to get, the lady friend that I had decided to get Sal, my mate, the keyboard player, up and running. And Sal was a very straight guy in a funny way, but he could also, you could twist him a little, but he was a pretty straight guy anyway. She started him drinking. And this went on for about an hour to the point where he wasn't in any state to play music. Let's just say that. And the people had arrived, and about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and she had him doing Cossack dances on the floor before the band started playing, which was funny in itself because we'd never seen that side of him. This is a straight guy. And he's jumping around doing Cossack dancing with his backside sitting on the floor almost. And eventually we got up and played, and he didn't know what he was doing. And this is a guy he's a music teacher, and he didn't know what he was doing. We're just playing songs. I'm looking at him like, what the hell are you doing? And we laugh about it all today because it was at the time it was really funny looking back, and a lot of the audiences, to be honest, you could play the same song all night and it wouldn't really make a lot of difference. But that was a very funny experience. I didn't think we'd get paid, I must say, for that night. I thought this guy's going to say, sorry boys. That was a dismal effort. But yeah, we laugh about it all now.
What job did you want when you were younger?
I think I was probably in my late, like I didn't have much direction in my teens. When I left school, back in my day, it was very easy to get a job. Like you could walk in and out of jobs, literally. Finish one, start another the next day. That's what life was like in the 70s. I was around 18, say 72. I decided I'd had a couple of jobs. I worked for the public service. I didn't really like that. But in answer to your question, I think in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a school teacher. That was something that stuck with me. I don't know it was because of the holidays, because they got 3 months a year off. That really appealed to me. I thought that's a job I could do. 3 months off every year and teaching. But yeah, that's the short answer to that question.
Can you tell me about the jobs you've had in the past in order of the jobs you've had?
That's impossible. I've had so many jobs. Look, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I was a kid, I grew up, I was unstable, I was emotionally a wreck, you know, with mum and dad and all that stuff going on, and life was a bit of turmoil, so I never really had any settledness in myself to make those sort of decisions about one particular job. So, like I said, you just jump from one job to the other. And I thought, maybe it's just me and my personality, whether I was grasping onto things or whether I just gave everything a go. And I started off working at a place called the National Bank. I worked at the National Bank. I always remember the manager got sacked for embezzlement. It was a funny story. But I worked there, and that was when I met my first friend. He worked at the bank too. Oh gosh. You're asking for a chronology. You'd have to ask the psychiatrist who interviewed me. He's probably written them all down, but according to the mother-in-law. Well, principally, look, I guess I work for the public service. I worked for 3 different departments in the public service. All I had to do was sit the test every time to get back in. I worked for department, back then it was Department of, I worked for the Taxation Department, I worked for Department of Employment and Industrial Relations, and another department which was called, it was like infrastructure. I was doing stuff around that. And then I met my first wife. I was working for what's now called Centrelink, and at the time her father wanted me, after I got married, to come into his business, which was in haberdashery / ornamentary stuff for women. And he had a little place in the old Herald Sun building in the city. That was a huge decision. I was on the verge of either wanting to go to Canberra, taking a package in a few years' time, which would have set me up for life, bought a house, everything. And that was probably the worst decision I've made in my life, leaving the public service. I was all set to roll, and then that happened. I left the job, went to work for him in a business that was failing, which I didn't know about at the time, and it caused all sorts of acrimony. And then after that business failed, I was a bit of a loose cannon again. I thought, well, what in the hell am I going to do now? And I'd gotten divorced. My second wife had become ill, and I ended up just doing courier driving just to help my life, to manage my life with the children. I had a job where I was my own boss. I was earning okay money, but it was hard work. But that's what I did to survive and to look after a family that had no mother. So, and that pretty much summed me up until the last 4 years of, working at a hospital. There's a lot of little in-between jobs, but working on farms, doing all sorts of stuff. But we could sit here for hours, and we don't have that time.
What was the worst job you ever had, and what made it so bad?
Well, courier driving was pretty bad, I can tell you. Speeding tickets weren't fun to get in the mail, and breakdowns, and stock falling off the back of your van, and just the general hard yards of it, just driving constantly. That was pretty stressful. Hay baling would be the other one. That was hard. When I went to the farm and we baled the hays by hand, big 20 to 40k bales of soggy hay. You had to throw them up, but it was all a good experience.
Do you have any interesting stories from your time working?
Interesting working stories. Well, look, the stories currently will be all privacy and confidentiality stories because I work in a hospital. And yes, I get very interesting stories every day from work about the client, patients and the staff, but I really can't divulge those sort of things, but a lot of funny things can happen. Oh gosh, interesting stories. Yeah, I can't really think of anything at the moment that sort of you'd be interested in, work-wise, in a humorous way or in a just like, life's a blur. It's just a blur. It just goes so quick. Well, the public service, we used to play a lot of table tennis, and that's how I used to get sweet with the bosses. I used to beat them at table tennis, and we'd have challenges every day. And then one day the big boss said, "You want to come up to Canberra with me? I can get you in." And I said, "Whoa!" And it was a huge step up the ladder. But he became number 3. Rodney Halstead, he became number 3 in the employment service up in Canberra, but I never went. But I caught up with him probably 5 or 6 years later. I met him in Canberra. But yeah, that was funny because we all played table tennis together, and we formed a little bit of a bond. Scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, sort of thing.
What's something surprising about a job you've had that most people wouldn't know?
This is going to have to something obscure because I'm trying to rattle my brain through. I've done so many different silly jobs. I've worked in hospitality once. I remember a job I got. I don't know how I got the job or why I got the job. I worked with a chef at the hotel, one of the hotels in it was Hampton, and Lenko, his name was, the chef, and we had a little thing going where I was doing all the dishes and doing a lot of food preparation, and at lunchtime he used to deliberately spoil some of the food so we could eat it because we weren't allowed to eat it otherwise. We'd say, oh, look, what's happened to that steak, you know? What's happened to those potatoes? Oh. But that was a lot of fun because we got to work and eat for free. It was all beautiful gourmet food in there. Yeah, hay baling was that was a bit of fun, hay baling, getting out there, and that was so hard, that job. You were exhausted at night, and I remember one night I went to bed and it was just pelting down with rain, and the rain got through the roof, and I woke up and I was soaked. We're sleeping in like old sheds, you know, just like a backpacker's shed. They were funny memories, interesting memories. It's hard to think of what things that the family be interested in hearing or what I've done, because I can tell you all, I've done a lot of different jobs. I've probably had maybe 50. I wouldn't like to count since I was 16 years old, but a lot of those were part-time. The more permanent ones were the public service, driving, and now the hospital. But I've done orderly work. I got a job as an orderly at the Alfred Hospital. That's where I met my second wife. And that was a bit of fun. We had a few clowns in there that did some quirky things, let's say. You know, we used to have to collect people that had sadly passed on to another world, and we had to collect them and take them into the cold rooms. I worked as I did that with my brother. I worked at a funeral parlour briefly. That was really strange. I always remember the smell of people. But I didn't stay too long in that job. I don't know what happened. I can't even remember. But yeah, geez, now it's all starting to flash back, all these crazy jobs I did. I don't know why I even did them. I don't even know. I think that's a great thing. I look back at 68, and that's life's experience. Because when you get to 68, you do look back and think, hell, I gave a lot of things a go, didn't I? And that's life. I hate sitting on trains. I feel like an automaton sitting on a train every day going to a job. I couldn't do it. It's like my life's already over. I'm on this train. It's the train to nowhere. And so that's probably another reason why I try different things. I hated getting stuck in something and that was it. That was my life. No, that wasn't my capability. I knew I was more capable than just doing one little thing anyway. So, yeah.
Have you ever had any physical or mental health issues that deeply affected you?
Oh God, yes. I think every human being alive has, and I'm no different. I think my mental health started when my mum died. obviously the significance of that and the impact of that changes your whole life, mentally and physically in some people's cases. Not that I got isolated or anything, but I certainly had my isolating moments, like when I was down on the farm and I'd be thinking about things and the memories come flooding back, and that brings in emotions, and emotions bring sadness, and that affects you. You feel sad, you feel depressed, you don't feel like talking to people, Everyone around you's happy and you're sitting there miserable as all hell. So, yeah, I went through all that range of emotions. Going through a divorce wasn't fun. Losing Matt's, the kid's mum, wasn't fun. And all those things do affect you emotionally, but at the end of the day, I made my mistakes. I've made some terrible mistakes. I regret a lot of things I've done. But, we could all turn back the clock and be perfect people, and that's what makes us who we are. I hope that I've learned a little bit from the mistakes that I've made, and I can help others along the way not to make the same mistakes. And I always say that to the kids: just be the best people you can be. You're going to make mistakes. Learn from them. That's the trick. Don't be too hard on yourself. But yeah, those emotions, and I still live with them today. There's always going to be grief, guilt and loss, I'll always be grieving. I'll always feel a certain amount of guilt. And, and people are quite right to say that to me, I know that there's things I could have done differently. But hey, I'm not perfect.
Can you tell me about your love of sport and your own personal sporting history?
International? Oh, well, yes, I was going to be an international superstar, but it just never happened. I started off, I think Dad would have thought that. My father, because he was so sporty, Dad, and at a young age, mind you, he was very well trained too. He had good coaching, but I think Dad had a dream for us, myself. My brother was going to play for St Kilda Football Club. He was a very good footballer, my older brother. And I remember one day he was in the under-19s and he was playing on the future Australian centre-half back, this guy called Robert McGee from the Bulldogs. And Michael kicked 6 goals on him that day. I always remember that day. I thought, he's going to be a star, Mike. He was taller than me, he had a great leap, and he was a natural football player, natural sportsman. With me, it was a bit harder. I was a bit slower, and I thought I had skill, but I don't think I had enough skill to go all the way. And sadly for Dad, he never got to see us reach the heights that he was probably hoping for. I did my knee, big scar there. And yeah, that ended pretty much all my sporting activity when I was only, 19 or 20, I think, at the time. But yeah, the dreams are probably more Dad's dreams than myself and my brother. My brother gave it away as well because he was just pushed beyond the boundaries of his limitations of his human body, and he didn't like the training. He used to come home throwing up after training, and they trained them so hard. And myself, I was a keen trainer. I used to love my sport. I played cricket with Trevor Barker and Barry Breen. They were footballers and cricketers down at Cheltenham. But yeah, never went on with it, got injured, and that was the end of my sporting days. So not a lot to report, and I never really thought I'd make it, to be honest with you.
When was the last time you cried about something meaningful?
Gosh, well, I have my moments of tears. A lot of it's to do with my own family, never about myself. Although I'm sad within myself, at times I wish I had have been able to provide more for a family that's lost so much. That makes me sad. But tears come when I see the kids unhappy and they're not able to cope with life or life situations, circumstances. That's what makes me really sad when it's ongoing. We all have our brief moments, where we do have moments of sadness, but when it's ongoing, it gets hard. That's when it sets in like a heavy rain. It sets in your heart and you think, God, when is this rain going to end? And that can be that can make you feel very sad and teary.
I think you've already mentioned this one. I had a question here. What was your biggest regret? But you've told me already your biggest regret was taking that job at the haberdashery place.
Yes. I'd have to say, well, look, when you talk about regrets, you've got to look at the situation. It's like saying I regret getting married again. I've got 3 beautiful children. You can't really look at it that way. I guess it's sort of, I regret not being able to do more with my life. I regret not being able to provide more for the children. I don't know what sort of a legacy I've left. It's certainly not a financial one. But hopefully they know that I love them and I'm there for them. And that's the main legacy I can leave. Regrets, there's not really any point in having regrets because everyone's got them. We all regret we could have done things differently or we should have done things. The old could have, should have, would have, didn't,
If you could say one thing the whole world would hear, what would you say?
Well, I say to the children, the common phrase I try to use is, well, two things really. I know you want one, but be the best person you can possibly be in life, whatever that means to you. And also, learn from your mistakes. Try and learn from your mistakes. They're the 2 main things that come to mind.
If you could invite anyone to dinner, alive or dead, whom would it be and why?
Alive or dead? Probably Jesus. I think at the end of the day, there's a spiritual connection for me, and I know that, I could be dead tomorrow, I could be dead in 5 years. But I like to believe that one day we're going to be all one happy family. You'll be connected with your granddad that you love. I'll be connected with the people I love. And the common denominator is somewhere there, and I'm hoping it'll be a spiritual experience, in whatever shape or form that takes, that eternal connection. Could it be? I can't think of just sitting here talking like we are now, and then there's nothing forever. We're gone. 0. We don't get to see anyone. We don't get to talk to anyone. The connection's gone forever. Like pulling out the PowerPoint. I think the PowerPoint will go in a different direction. That's my great hope.
What's the best joke you know?
You got me on the hop. I used to know a lot of jokes. But sadly, a lot of the jokes are very racially and prejudicial back in my day and discriminatory. So, and you've got to be very politically correct how you word things. Well, I can tell you a funny story joke, okay? This is one I made up. I like to make up things at times, but and I'm not talking out of school, but at work, I work in a psychiatric ward, and I'm dealing with patients from varying degrees of psychiatric poor health. And one particular day, I had a guy came in, and I hadn't seen him there before. And I introduced myself. I said, we're going to run a men's group now. Let's just talk about stuff. What are our goals? Why we're in here, and what do we want to do when we get out? How do we improve our lives? What's important to you in your life? Let's put it all out there. And anyway, we're sitting in this room, and this guy, I said, do you know why you're here? And I won't say his name. Call him John. John said, Well, I don't really know why I'm here, to be honest with you, Rusty. He said, my mate dobbed me in. And I said, what do you mean? What happened? He said, well, I was watching the footy with him at the pub. Oh, God, this story gets me every time. He's watching the footy at the pub, and he's a mad Melbourne supporter. This is before the flags, right? The flag. It was 2 years ago. And he's a mad Demon supporter. And he said, we were winning. Can you believe? I was drinking a lot of grog. We were winning right up until the last 3 minutes. And he went nuts because Melbourne lost the game. And he said, I'm going to fucking kill myself. He said, I'll fucking think of this. And he was swearing away. And his mate took him seriously because he knew how fanatical he was. Like, he was a true blue fanatical Melbourne supporter. His mate took him serious. He said he's going to go home and kill himself. So his mates rang the police up. And for whatever reason, he was probably a bit pissed. But they took him in under what they call a 351 section. And they took him into the psych ward. And they said, you better settle down for a while, mate. You know, we're a bit worried about you. Mate's really worried about you. And he's telling us this story in the men's group. And he said, look, it's all good now. I'm okay. He said, you know, I said, oh, I'm over it. He said, I'm not pissed anymore. I want to go home, back to his normal self. And I said, oh, that's great news. I said, you know, have you spoken to the doctors? Have they told you when you're going? And he said, yeah, I'm going today. I said, oh, good. You've only been in overnight. Anyway, the afternoon come round and he's waiting to get his medication before he gets discharged. And he's sitting out in the lounge, and I went up to him and I said, hey, John. I said, I've got some bad news for you, mate. And he looked at me and said, what are you talking about? He's perfectly normal and sober. I said, I just heard the word, mate. You're going to be here for another 3 weeks. And he said, what? He said, you're kidding. I said, yep. I said, I've spoken to the doctors, and they said 3 more weeks because they said Melbourne are going to lose their next 3 games. And he looked at me, and then he realised it was all a big joke. So we had a big laugh. I said, see, it's not that bad, is it, mate? You know, just go home. If they win or they lose, does it really matter, you know? But he'd be happy now. They won the flag next year. So that was a funny little story and I get a lot of those things at work, you know, but I've got to be careful what I say, but yeah.
Can you tell me about your most memorable travel experience?
Yep. Well, local memories will be going to Princetown, which is my childhood. All my childhood memories are trapped at that place, and my best memories of just enjoying farm life and the exhilaration and the freedom of being on a farm and no worries or cares in the world. Just living life with nature is a beautiful thing. I encourage everyone to do it. Secondly would be overseas trips, memorable trips. Well, Bali, we're going to Bali every year up until COVID hit. And that was really nice because I love the surf, I love swimming, I love the ocean, and I was able to get fit. Unfortunately, the last trip I went, I got robbed, which was quite memorable because I was going for an early morning walk at 5 a.m, and a guy pulled up on a motorbike, and I was actually looking for a toilet, and he told me where to go in this little shed, this little, like a toilet block it looked like, and I went there, and then he came up behind me. I didn't know, I didn't see him, and he grabbed me from behind, and he's grabbed my bag. He managed to rifle in my bag and grab out my wallet with all my ID, not my passport, thankfully. And yeah, it all happened very quickly on that trip, and I was the only one there on the beach, walking along the beach, and he came by about 5 minutes later, and I realised he'd taken everything, and he threw the wallet and laughed. And I've picked it up, nothing in there, of course, no cash. My credit card, my debit card's gone, but right in the back, thankfully, I had my credit card still there. I'd put it in a different spot for some reason, and thank God for that. So I got the local one of the locals, happened to be one of the working girls, gave me a lift back on the bike. No services, we didn't have time for that anyway. But I said, just get me back quick to the hotel, I'll pay you whatever you want. And then I quickly rang the bank and told them what happened, and thankfully they were able to link up the credit card. So that was a hair-raising moment back in Bali, and the only time I've ever had any trouble there, ever. But I love to go overseas, and I love the water and the warm weather. I'm a warm weather person. I love the ocean.
What are your most important accomplishments, and what do you feel most proud of?
I'm proud of staying true to the cause. Try not to waver. But get distracted from the mission that I'm on, whether it's what I'm doing with the children or whether it's work. As a human being, I think one of the things I do pride myself in is trying to get the best out of myself. Amongst all the failings, there's a few little nuggets of gold I've found. And I really enjoy, and I think Matthew's a bit like this too, he enjoys challenging himself, because we don't really know what we're capable of until we give things a go. So I say to people, don't be afraid. Don't let fear hold you back. You know, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. I've done things I never thought I could do. And I sit here today saying, well, I'm no Rhodes Scholar. I've found certain levels in my life that I was proud of myself for making the effort, trying to make the commitment and discipline myself to master this particular thing, whether it be music, a cryptic crossword, whatever. Just see what you're capable of. And because life goes by so quick. I'm 68 now and I'm still thinking there's more. There's something left in me and I know it. I've just got to find it. There's one more mission in my life that I want to achieve, whether that's helping people that are disadvantaged, which is one thought, maybe more for my children as well, but there's something left in me, and to keep the dream alive. You know, don't let the fire burn out, because that's when you die. I think if you've got no vision in life, you might as well get on that train every day.
What was something that you took for granted that you regret?
People. Taking people for granted is a big mistake in life. Not appreciating your friends or the people around you, what they can, what they have done, or how you can help support them. You know, you've got to. It's a bit of a balance. I mean, you can't totally neglect yourself, because everyone goes, oh, self-care. You know, if you can't look after yourself, you can't look after anyone else. You hear that 24/7. But on the other hand, you know, there's a part of that says, well, looking after myself is caring for other people and looking after other people and being mindful of other people. And I've hopefully evolved that way, where my thoughts are more towards, you know, the health of people around me and the greater health of the community, but certainly the health of the people around me, where I'm there. I'm there when needed. I'm there to lend support.
When was the last time you felt truly alive?
When I woke up this morning, I was alive. I'm only joking. That was... Well, it's true. You wake up, you think, oh, I've got to wake up this morning at my age, but truly alive in the sense of jumping out of my skin. Ooh. I come alive when I see the joy that my family are having. It'd be like you, when Daniel's happy, your family's happy. They love to see you happy, and they look at the joy in your face. They think, this is fantastic. He's really getting something out of life, and that's the same as me. my joy comes from other people's joy. That's where I feel happy, content, at peace and satisfied. And if there's trouble out there, there's trouble in here. That's how I live my life.
What question would you most like to know the answer to?
It'd be a bit scary. Well, I guess, ugh, we'd all like to look into the future, but that could be a scary thing. And I don't know if I want to go there. Because, for example, if I was to look into the future and I say, oh, Daniel's going to die of cancer in 10 years, I don't want to know that. That's not the future I want to know. So it's more, I guess it's more the overall picture of life itself, looking into the future. You know, we're here for such a short time. We're all on this earth, on this stage, you know, 3.5 billion people. That whole 3.5 billion people are going to be gone in 100 years, every single one of them. There'll be another 3.5 billion to replace them. And I sort of, hey?
7 billion.
7, there you go, it's doubled already. In 1 second it doubled. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it'd be nice. The spiritual connection's got to be there. And we've spoken about this in many a psychiatry session about the 7 elements of a person's life, which is your, well, it's really called SPOIFES, but it's your working conditions, it's your family connections, your physical health, your occupational, or whether you've got a course you're doing, your intellectual property. We all need intellectual stimulation, your financials, your environment, your emotional values, and your spiritual values. Those 7 elements, if any of them are out of whack, you're out of whack, you know. It's an ongoing process of keeping connected with those 7 elements in your life to be the best person you can be.
What topic could you spend hours talking about?
Probably what we're talking about now. The deeper psychological connections in a person's life, like you're saying, what makes you the person you are. I mean, I look at you, and yes, there's Daniel visually, there's Daniel with the skin on, but if I was to take your face away, what Daniel would I see? You know, it's the Daniel that's built a life in here, that's built all these connections in here. And that helps me not to judge people on how they look, their race, their height, their weight, whatever, you know, no discrimination. I see people differently now. And I think the world, unfortunately, pushes an external picture of people at us to say, look at this person, this is the ideal human, she's tall, blonde, curvaceous. But I don't see life that way anymore. I see people as who they are in here, not the external vision. And it's hard to do, you know, because we're brought up on, you know, how we look, you know. If I said to you, Daniel, what's your identity? What are you going to tell me? My name's Daniel, this is what I look like. I'm 20 years old or whatever. But what is the real Daniel? It's not just what you look like. That's nothing. Doesn't mean a thing.
Do you believe in a God?
Well, I certainly hope so. I would be earthly shattered if there was, and you hear people talk about it all the time, about justice, you know, or one day, you know, you're going to get your justice or injustice. But also more broader than that, the whole family thing. I mean, we're all built around love. Human beings are made to love. And I think love, the universal God. I see love as the universal God in whatever shape that takes, whether it's through a Christian God, through Jesus, or it's some greater thing out there that we haven't tapped into yet. I think there's something in the universe that will bind us all together one day. So we're not just going to disappear, because deep in here I think we are spiritual. And it's a funny question, because I remember, when I was coming out of those dark days when I was in my teens, and I just met my first wife, and we were just going out, and we were looking at things to do, and we went and saw a movie called Beyond and Back. It was on in the late 70s, would have been. We went and saw this movie called Beyond and Back, and it was a real eye-opener. It sent tingles down my spine, because what it was, it wasn't what I thought. I thought it was going to be a sci-fi or something. It was like a documentary, and it was all these people that had died, clinically dead, and they'd left their body, and they'd come back to their body, and they'd all described the experience of leaving their body. And one guy, these were eminent people. They weren't, there weren't people there for sensationalism. They were eminent people, a lot of them. They were, people that were well regarded in society. And one guy said he was being wheeled down to the mortuary. They pronounced him dead. And he said he'd risen above the table and he was watching them wheeling to the mortuary, and he said the orderly dropped his pin on the way down the corridor. He came back to life in his body when they got him down to the mortuary, and he told the orderly where he dropped his pin. He said, "You dropped your pin halfway down the corridor. I was watching." He knew. And these people had these amazing recollections, very vivid, of what it was like to leave their body and to be told either to come back, or they didn't want to come back. That was the odd thing. They were all quite happy to go. And they said they were attracted to this beautiful light. They said, we can't describe indescribable peace. That's what they felt, like they'd never felt in a human body, this peace, and they were drawn to this light. But they came back to their body, and they all described the same experience. So from that day on, Daniel, I thought there's got to be something more out there, than just this flesh and bones that makes us an eternal creature, not just a physical thing that's going to rot and die in the ground. And that gives me hope. Yep. That'll be your next video. Here we are now. Heaven's door.
What are you most grateful for in life?
There's a lot of things I am grateful for, and I am grateful every day just for all the beautiful things we've got around us. Mainly, I guess, as a human, the connection with other people is great. It's a wonderful thing to connect and share our thoughts and all those things that are going on in our lives. I'm grateful for all the beautiful things on the planet, the food, the flora, the fauna, the landscapes. But mainly the people. I think the people are your main connection in life, and I'm grateful for our family, our immediate family, and in a broader sense, the bigger family out there, of human beings.
What is something you think everyone should experience at least once in their life?
I think a spiritual awakening. I think you need a spiritual awakening, because we're more than flesh and blood. And whatever shape that takes for you, some people find spirituality in nature, but I think ultimately it defines who we are and where we're going. We're spiritual beings. I can't see myself as just a piece of flesh running around and going to die one day. So I think that'd be the biggest one for me. And love, of course, love is a part of that, that you find that intense love and peace within yourself. peace is a great thing. One thing I will say, spirituality is one thing, but also when I was growing up, I never had peace. That's one thing I found I never had when I was young, and I craved for peace in my life. I was a restless person, and I never had any real direction. Spirituality helps that direction, but you've got to nurture it like everything in life. You nurture the good things and try not to, get distracted.
How do you want to be remembered?
Well, hopefully the video will help. But if they don't want to look at the video, then I'll say to you all, I think as a person that genuinely tried his best to be the best person he could be and to help his family in the best way he could. I mean, that's really the main legacy I can leave, as a person that loved and cared for his family.
What are your hopes and dreams for your loved ones?
That they find peace and satisfaction in whatever they're doing in life, and that they live by the values that will achieve those goals, because you won't get there if you don't. And I'm a perfect example of that. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I use that word regret. I wish I hadn't, but we do. But try and hold true to your personal values, not the values of someone that tells you. And I think you'll go a long way to achieving that peace and that satisfaction and that enjoyment in life that you're going to get. And you'll feel good about yourself. You'll feel good. You'll think, no, this is me. This is who I am, my identity. I'm Danny, respectful, peaceful, loving guy. Sorry, I'm not going to listen to that negative crap. They're not me. I'm not going to take that on board because it's poison. It's horrible, the poison I see at work. You know, what's happened with families. It really helps define me as a person. Think, gosh, what these kids have gone through.
What would you say to other people considering making an entry into the archive or recording their story?
Yes, well, I'd say, look, get your quotes. Daniel's pretty good, though. I'd say, look, having done it now, I guess it is a little confronting. It can be a little confronting, at the end of the day, though, it's a visual, verbal recollection of a person's life that you're never going to get any other way apart from second-hand stories. So I'm here to tell you firsthand that if you want a first-hand account that's undisputable because it's come out of the words of yourself, then I think it's a great thing to do, to get your life story done with Daniel. He asks the questions in a respectful way, and he's a good listener. And I think it's a valuable 2 hours that the whole family will have for the rest of their lives to look back and reflect. And it's like I haven't gone, really. I'm there. You're talking to me now. So it's a great thing to do. I'd fully support doing something like this. I think it's good, and it's helped me in a way reflect a little bit on my life, which I do a lot of at times. But it's good. They're questions that are all valid and help people understand the person that's, narrating this story. I hope I haven't confused you all too much.